Inside, the unregulated homes failing to protect our most vulnerable children.
It was a literal hellhole. Living here was a punishment.
We hear stories of abuse, exploitation and despair.
How many times did you attempt to take your life?
I think about 3 times.
That is actually disgusting. No one should ever lay their hand on someone like that.
We exposed the dangers facing some of our most vulnerable children.
People bringing in acids, knives, samurai swords, everything. I don't know how they even get it past all the cameras.
How do you sum up your experience?
Appalling. Whoever did what they did, someone needs to pay a price for the pain.
We reveal the confidential briefing sent to authorities and speak to a worker who witnessed the failures.
And that was it. That was the last time I saw her.
Trafficked, gone.
Yeah, gone.
Where's the next home?
A year ago, we were told vulnerable children were being badly failed by authorities across England and Wales.
It's about halfway down, isn't it?
Increasingly, teenagers aged 16 and over, and often in care,
This one here.
are being placed in homes where checks are only made by councils and not a regulator.
This is where she lived.
We obtained this confidential briefing sent around councils with claims of serious safeguarding failings in homes run by a company called Centurion Care. We set out to find the young people affected.
It was horrendous. Drug taking, motorbikes being stolen.
We've learned police were conducting surveillance on this home for young people caught up with criminal gangs,
I saw them dealing drugs over the back wall.
while other vulnerable people lived inside.
I used to live on this top floor.
Carla spent years in foster homes before being sent to Centurion Care.
So my self-harm would be quite severe. There was a situation where it'd been really bad and I'd lost a lot of blood. And I went down to the member of staff and I was like, you need to take me to the hospital. And they were like, no, I can't leave the boys unattended.
Refusing to take you to hospital.
Yeah, he was like, oh, you should just go walk to the shop.
She says she was taken to a pharmacy an hour later.
Just a house where people profit from young, vulnerable children.
Centurion Care told us all of their homes had first aid kits. Incidents were recorded and sent to social workers. On one occasion, Carla was taken to hospital and they cooperated with police, installing CCTV to prevent drug dealing.
Up there on the left.
We then moved to another Centurion Care home, 2 miles away, where they looked after a boy with learning disabilities.
There's a camera.
And we obtained this. A recording outside the home showing the child in the yellow shirt, in distress, lashing out. Police were called here to an allegation of an assault by a boy on a worker. We can't be sure what led up to this, but watch how the worker responds. Tia was also a resident at the time.
That would have probably scared the life out of him. They used to swear, scream in his face, tell him that they was going to take his balloons away. And they just used to take them, pop them, threaten him with police. He was absolutely petrified.
Centurion Care told us police were given CCTV. No one was charged with an offence, and they weren't aware of any allegation of bullying on this boy. During our investigation, we also heard stories of vulnerable children exposed to weapons, drugs and organised crime.
A lot of drug dealing, people bringing in acid.
This teenager also lived in a home run by Centurion Care.
Knife, samurai swords, everything. I don't know how they even get it past all the cameras.
Terrified, he'd lock himself in his room.
How do you know it was acid in the bottle?
Because I opened it up and smelt it and it burnt my nose.
What was your reaction when that happened?
I nearly dropped the old bottle up the floor.
And what did you do?
Put it down, went straight into my room and barricaded my door because I didn't feel safe.
He says strangers were coming and going from the home.
Every 10 minutes the door's going, like going straight in and out, going round the corner, doing their drug deals or whatever and then coming straight back. So that house was basically just a drug deal house. But I had to live there because I couldn't go nowhere else.
Centurion Care told us they worked with police and neighbours to prevent drug dealing, and any young person who smoked cannabis in the placement was asked to leave. Of the 8 young men whose stories we've followed in Centurion Care, we've learned that 4 were sent or have returned to prison since leaving the homes.
Emmanuel. Hello there.
One family agreed to let us talk to their son inside prison.
That was a difficult time there. I wasn't really being fed properly.
Fed?
Yeah,
You weren't eating inside there?
yeah. I was basically starving myself. I was on £52 a week to get me to probation and other things like that. So once I've spent that money, there's no other way to buy food. There were some days I couldn't eat nothing.
Like many unregulated homes, it's down to the young person to manage their finances and food. Emmanuel repeatedly disappeared because he was involved in county lines drug dealing.
Basically, got taken to another area to sell drugs to.
How did they get to you in the home? How did they find you in Basildon?
Through other people.
Could you have said no?
Not really.
Did you ever ask the staff inside Centurion Care for help?
No, I never asked them that because I didn't feel like they could help me the way I needed to be looked after.
Emmanuel was jailed for possession with intent to supply heroin and crack cocaine. Centurion Care said they felt all children were safe and secure across their placements. We spent weeks trying to track down someone who knew the children involved.
They were all very high risk.
Andy was a support worker across many of the homes.
Sexual exploited kids, drugs and alcohol abuse, some that had disabilities, all in one roof.
He seemed most shocked by what happened here. Andy remembers a girl who regularly went missing.
I just saw a bunch of boys in a car and she just jumped in really. And
From this spot?
From this spot, literally right here. And that was it. That was the last time I saw her.
Trafficked, gone.
Yeah, gone.
She was missing for more than a week before being found in the Midlands.
Police ended up finding her. All sorts happened.
There's no suggestion Centurion Care staff were involved in her trafficking. It took months to find out who she was and where she now lived.
A lot of people go through things where, like, in the care system, where it's just, they give up. You're alone.
What was the impact on you being taken like that?
Not a bad impact. It was the worst. Yeah. No one deserves that.
Like many children in care, she was placed in a home outside of a local authority.
I didn't have no friends or anything. I was always just running away, trying to get away from the home. Trying to get away from the environment, the staff, them.
She says she was also sexually abused by a young person in the home.
Did the staff members phone the police?
No.
Did the staff members remove the boys from the home who had been hurting
No,
you?
they just told me that me and the guy were in a relationship. They told me that that's what I wanted.
Centurion Care told us all staff had safeguarding training. Missing person procedures were followed, and they had no record of a sexual assault allegation.
What were you hoping it would be?
Just like a fresh start.
The homes were closed in 2017 and the company dissolved when an investigation was launched over organised and complex abuse facing children in the homes.
It was completely out of control. Absolute manic, wild. Like, some people had drugs in the house. There was some people that ended up having, like, large amount of cash. And there was nothing you could have really done about it because other staff members didn't do anything about it, so...
This confidential council briefing we've obtained on Centurion Care says some workers were known to police for arrests that didn't lead to charges. Centurion Care says it's not aware of these disclosures on any of the workers' enhanced DBS checks, which were available at every local authority inspection, and no concerns were raised.
Her vulnerability was quite high.
Andy says a girl reported being taken from one of the homes, given alcohol and drugs, before having sex with a man who occasionally worked in the home. Police said there was not enough evidence any crime was committed. The confidential briefing says the man had several convictions and had been previously investigated but not charged for an alleged sex offence involving a child. Centurion Care said the contractor didn't need to be DBS checked. His role was known to the local authority, they cooperated with the police, and there was no further action. Across England, there's around 5,000 children in unregulated homes, many highly vulnerable, all facing the same risks.
I am outraged. I'm outraged and upset in equal measure about what I've just seen.
Dame Louise Casey led an investigation into Rotherham Council after hundreds of children were sexually exploited in the town.
It's not a loophole, it's a scandal. I want those homes regulated.
How urgent is that?
Tomorrow. The shame is that it's taken the BBC, the same way it was in Rotherham, it took the media to lift the lid on it.
She fears young people aren't being protected in unregulated homes.
That house was basically just a drug deal house.
You are exposing their voices, which I can only hope means that it's listened to in a different way. It's time for Whitehall to wake up to this. It's a disgrace. If action isn't taken on the back of this programme, then we're colluding in letting groomers, predatory paedophiles go after those children. And that's our responsibility, and that's why I find it so upsetting.
Across England and Wales, there's been more than a dozen so-called organised and complex abuse investigations into failures to protect children in unregulated homes. The stories of those children are unlikely to ever be heard.